Okay, boys and girls, this is part two of chapter one of Robert Lawson's Rabbit Hill. I read the first part of the chapter to you, and we were introduced to several characters: Georgie, Georgie's mom and dad, Porky, and I think that's it so far. So now Father's going to continue his walk around the neighborhood to find out if new folks are coming. Father continued his stroll in a happier frame of mind. After all, times had been times had been pretty hard these last few years. Many of their friends had deserted the hill. All their married children had sought other homes. Mother really was looking peaked and seemed to worry more and more. Now, new folks in the house might bring back the good old days. "Good evening, sir, and good luck to you," said the gray fox politely. "New folks coming, I understand." "A pleasant good evening to you, sir," answered Father. All indications seemed to point to that happy event. "I must thank you," the fox went on, "for taking those dogs off my trail yesterday morning. I wasn't in very good condition to deal with them. You see, I had been away up Weston way to bring home a hen. Pickings are pretty scarce hereabouts these days. 8 miles it is, there and back, and she was a tough old girl. She was sitting pretty heavy, and I was tuckered out when those dogs jumped me. You handled them very skillful, very, and I'm obliged to you." "Not at all, my boy, not at all. Pray don't mention it," said Father. "I always enjoy a run to hounds. Brought up on it, you know. Why, down in the bluegrass country." "Yes, I know," said the fox hastily. What did you do with them?" "Oh, I just took them on a little romp down the valley, through a few briar patches, ended them up on an electric fence of Jim Coley's. Stupid brutes, though. Hardly could call it a sport. Very low class. Now, down in the bluegrass country, the hounds were real thoroughbreds. Why, I can remember—" "Yes, yes, I know," said the fox, melting into the bushes. "Thanks, just the same, though." He didn't have time to hear about Kentucky, did he? The gray squirrel digging around rather hopelessly. He never could quite remember where he'd buried his nuts, and there had been a very few to bury last autumn anyway. "Good evening, sir, and good luck to you," said Father. "The good luck, however, seems to be what you most require." He smiled as he eyed the futile digging. "Your memory, old fella, if you'll forgive me my saying so, is not what it used to be." "It never was," sighed the squirrel. "Never could recollect where I put things." He paused to rest and looked over the valley. "I can recollect other things, though, real clear. Do you remember the old days when things were good here on the hill, when there was good folks here? Mind the tree the young ones always used to fix for us come Christmas? That spruce over there it was, only smaller then. Little lights on it, carrots and cabbage leaves and celery for your folks, seed and suet for the birds. Used to dip into them a bit myself. Nuts of all kinds of nuts for us, all hung pretty like on the branches." "Indeed I do," said Father. "The memory of those times is deeply cherished by all of us, I am sure. Let us hope that the anticipated arrival of new folks may in some degree bring about a renaissance of old and pleasanter days." "New folks coming?" inquired the squirrel quickly. "It is so rumored, and recent developments seem to indicate such a possibility." "Good," said the squirrel, resuming his explorations with more energy. "Hadn't heard of it. Been too busy scrambling around. I've got the most forgetful memory." Willie Field Mouse galloped along to the end of the mole ridge and whistled shrilly. Mole! He shouted. Mole! Come up, news, Mole, news! Mole heaved his head and his shoulders up out of the earth and turned his blind face towards Willie, pointed his snout quivering. Well, Willie, well, he said, what's all the excitement? What news is news? News enough, Willie cried breathlessly. Oh, Mole, what news? Everybody's talking about it. New folks coming, Mole, new folks coming. In the big house, new folks. Everybody says they're planting folks, Mole, and maybe there'll be some seeds again in the tool house. Seeds and chicken feed, and it'll fall through the cracks, and we'll have all we can eat all winter, just like in the summer. And there'll be heat in the cellar, and we can build burrows right against the walls and be warm and snug again, and maybe they'll plant tulips, Mole, and skillas and chickadoxes. Oh, what wouldn't I give for a nice, crisp tulip bulb right now? Oh, that old bulb game, the mole chuckled. I know I do all the digging and you follow up the burrow and eat the bulbs. That's fine for you, but what do I get out of it? Nothing but the blame. That's all I get. Why, Mole, said Willie, very hurt. Why, Mole, that's unfair of you. It really is. You know what pals we've always been. Always share and share alike. Why, Mole, I'm surprised. He was sniffing slightly. The mole laughed and clapped Willie on the back with his broad leathery paw. Come, come, he laughed. Don't be so everlastingly sensitive. I was only joking. Why, how could I get along without you? How could I know what was going on? How could I see things? What do I say when I want to see anything? Willie wiped away his snuffles. You say, Willie, be eyes for me. Of course I do, said Mole heartily. I say, Willie, be eyes for me, and you are eyes for me. You tell me just how things look and the size of them and the colors of them. You tell it real good, too. Nobody could tell it better. Willie had lost his hurt now. And I do tell you when mole traps have been set, don't I? Or poison put out, and when they're going to roll the lawn, though nobody's rolled this lawn in a long time. Of course you do, the mole laughed. Of course you do. Now blow your nose and run along. I've got my dinner to get, and grubs are scarce around here nowadays. He ducked back behind his run, and Willie watched the ridge lengthen slowly down the lawn, the end of it heaving and quivering with the mole's digging. Here's Willie, the field mice and the mole. He scampered down and rapped on the ground. Mole, he cried, I'll be eyes for you when they come. I'll tell you real good. Of course you will. Mole's voice was muffled by the earth. Of course you will, and I wouldn't be surprised if there were tulips. Pewee, the skunk, stood up on the edge of the pine wood looking down at the big house. There was a slight rustle, and the red buck appeared beside him. Good evening, sir, and good luck to you, said Pewee. New folks coming. So I understand, said the deer. So I understand, and high time, too. Not that it matters to me especially. I roam a lot, but these things have been poorly here on the hill for some of the little fellows, very poorly. Yes, you roam, Pewee answered, but you're not above a mess of a garden sass now and then, aren't you? Well, no, not if it's right to the hand, the buck admitted. He sniffed slightly. I say, Pewee, would you mind moving over a little bit? Would you? A little to the leeward? There, that's fine. Thanks a lot. As I was saying, I'm fairly fond of a mess of greens now and then and a row of lettuce, say, or some young cabbage, very young. The old ones give me indigestion. But of course, what I really crave is tomatoes. Are tomatoes. You take a nice young ripe tomato now. You take it, interrupted Pewee. Personally, myself, I don't care whether they're planting folks or not, except for the rest of you, of course. Gardens are nothing in my life. What I'm looking forward to is their garbage. You do have such low taste, Pewee, said the buck. By the way, the breeze seems to have shifted. Would you mind? That's fine, thanks. As I was saying, low taste nothing, answered Pewee. You just don't understand garbage. Now, there's garbage and garbage, just like there's folks and folks. Some folks' garbage just ain't fit for, well, it ain't fitting for garbage. But then there's other garbage. Now, you couldn't ask for anything nicer. I could, said the deer firmly. Much nicer, by the way, just to change the subject. Foxy's rather counting on there being chickens, perhaps ducks even. That ought to interest you. Chickens is all right, young ones, admitted Pewee, and ducks is all right. But to get back to the garbage. Oh, dear, Buck groaned. The winds changed again, and he backed into the woods. Deep down in the cold ground where some frost still lingered, the old grandfather of all the cutworms uncoiled in his dirty gray length and stretched his stiff joints. His voice was hissing whisper, but it served to waken from their sleep all the thousands of his offspring. New folks is coming, he hissed. New folks coming. Through all the sluggish mass, the sound spread. Slowly, a quiver ran through their ugly forms, slowly uncoiled, and began the long climb up through the clammy earth to be ready at the surface when tender new plants should appear. So it went on all over the hill, through the bushes, the tall, unkept grass was a continual stirring and rustling as the little animals rushed about, gossiping and speculating on the great event. The squirrels and chipmunks skittered along the stone walls, barking out the news. In the dark pine wood, the owl, the crow, and the blue jays argued over it loudly. Down in the burrows, there was a ceaseless coming and going of visitors, and above it all, the ever-recurring phrase, new folks coming. That's the end of the first chapter. I hope you've enjoyed it. I would love for you to write down some of the characters that you heard today or were introduced to today. And we'll see you for chapter 2.